The St. Petersburg State Conservatory's waiting room hummed with the anxieties of parents, a familiar symphony to Elena Petrova. Her 40-odd years had etched lines of quiet wisdom around her eyes that held a spark of defiance despite having witnessed too much. Her hands, composed in her lap, betrayed a subtle tension, a resonance with unspoken struggles that had long defined her life. She knew the weight of formalized judgment, a burden deeper than mere maternal concern. The air, thick with the scent of old wood and nervous energy, seemed to press down on her, a physical manifestation of the invisible pressures that permeated this world of elite art. She observed the other parents, their faces a mix of hopeful anticipation and barely concealed ambition, and a faint, almost imperceptible sigh escaped her lips. Their worries, she mused, were simple, quantifiable. A missed note, a forgotten passage, a momentary lapse in concentration. Elena's worries were not. They were rooted in the very soil of her being, in the collective memory of a people who had learned, through generations of quiet endurance, that true merit often bowed before unseen forces, before the subtle machinations of power and privilege. This understanding, a quiet sorrow passed down through generations, was a part of her very essence, a silent companion in her journey through life. Behind the ornate double doors, her 16-year-old daughter, Anya, clutched her beloved violin. Anya's talent transcended technical skill. Her music possessed a raw, ethereal beauty, a fragile, almost luminous quality that could stir the soul. Yet, she was timid, easily intimidated by the formidable reputation of Professor Viktor Volkov, the conservatory's revered maestro. Volkov, a man whose very name evoked images of stern tradition and uncompromising artistic purity, was known for his exacting standards and his almost aristocratic disdain for anything less than perfection. He was a gatekeeper, a guardian of the old ways, and his judgment was absolute. Professor Volkov, silver-haired and piercing-eyed, presided over the audition panel. His presence alone filled the hall with suffocating gravity. His gaze, sharp and critical, seemed to strip away all pretense, leaving only raw talent exposed. When Anya began her Tchaikovsky concerto, a hush fell. Her rendition, though not flawless, was imbued with profound emotional depth, a yearning that spoke of unspoken dreams and quiet sorrows, the music of the Russian soul, raw and vulnerable. Elena, listening through muffled walls, felt a familiar ache, a mix of pride and apprehension. She knew Anya's gift, but also the world of elite art, where pedigree often outweighed passion, where connections mattered more than raw talent. This was a world where the unspoken rules held more sway than any written decree, a silent tyranny that crushed the spirits of those who dared to challenge it. The air itself seemed to thicken with the unspoken judgments, the subtle biases that permeated every corner of the institution. Then came the judgment. Through the ajar door, Elena glimpsed Volkov's cold, dismissive gaze sweep over Anya. Her daughter's shoulders slumped, her small frame shrinking under his scrutiny. His words, though indistinct, carried a dismissive tone, a subtle implication of inadequacy, a quiet poison seeping into Anya's fragile confidence. Immediately after, Ivan Volkov, a young man with an air of inherited privilege, stepped forward. Ivan's parents, influential figures in the city's cultural circles, were often seen at conservatory events, their presence a silent endorsement of their son's talent, real or imagined. Ivan's playing, technically proficient but soulless, was met with Volkov's warm, almost paternal comments, a stark contrast to Anya's critique. A faint, imperceptible smile played on the professor's lips as he nodded approvingly. Elena's heart sank. It was the same old story playing out in a new generation, a subtle, insidious form of injustice that was harder to fight precisely because it was never openly declared. It was the quiet favoritism, the unspoken understanding, the subtle nod to those who belonged, and the equally subtle dismissal of those who did not. It was the weight of silence, pressing down on those who dared to dream beyond their station, a silent, suffocating force that had crushed countless aspirations before. The injustice was a phantom, elusive and pervasive, leaving its victims with a sense of bewildered helplessness. Elena watched Anya emerge, pale and downcast. The vibrant spark that usually animated her daughter was dimmed, replaced by fragile vulnerability. Anya mumbled about Volkov's harsh criticism, about her playing lacking the necessary soul. Elena embraced her, her touch a silent balm. She knew the sting well, a familiar ache resonating with echoes of her own past, a symphony of unspoken slights and subtle rejections that had shaped her life. She remembered the countless times she had felt that same cold dismissal, that same subtle undermining of her own worth. It was a wound that never fully healed, a constant reminder of the invisible barriers that stood between talent and recognition, a silent testament to the battles fought and lost in the quiet corners of the soul. The injustice was a familiar companion, a shadow that had followed her through life. In the weeks that followed, Elena observed a cruel rhythm in the conservatory. Anya, despite her undeniable talent and diligent practice, was consistently overlooked. Her compositions, though innovative and deeply moving, met lukewarm reception. During ensemble practices, her solos were cut short, her contributions minimized, while Ivan, polished but uninspired, was lauded. His every note, no matter how pedestrian, seemed to be imbued with an undeserved brilliance in the professor's eyes. Anya, sensitive and impressionable, began to internalize this dismissal. Her violin, once an extension of her soul, became a source of anxiety. Her practice sessions shortened, her melodies less vibrant, her passion dimming under the relentless weight of unacknowledged effort. Elena watched, her heart aching. It was the pain of seeing a vibrant spirit wither under the cold gaze of an indifferent, or perhaps intentionally biased, system. The injustice was not overt, not a shouted insult or a public reprimand, but a slow, insidious erosion of confidence, a quiet suffocation of talent, a creeping despair that threatened to consume Anya's very essence. The air in the conservatory, once filled with the promise of artistic growth, now felt heavy with the unspoken biases. This wasn't just about Anya's musical career, it was about her spirit, her belief in herself. It mirrored Elena's own youth, where artistic aspirations were quietly extinguished by similar pressures. She had been a promising painter, her canvases alive with vibrant colors and bold strokes, but unseen barriers, connections, social standing, the right family name, mattered more than talent. She had chosen silence then, a quiet retreat, believing it was survival, a way to protect the fragile flame of her inner world from the harsh winds of a prejudiced system. But silence came at a cost, a lingering regret that had shadowed her for decades, a constant whisper of what might have been. Now, seeing Anya's light dim, Elena felt maternal instinct clash with ingrained caution. Could she intervene? Direct confrontation was futile against an invisible enemy, a system that denied its own biases. Yet, letting Anya suffer the same fate was unbearable. The weight of her past silence pressed down, a silent accusation, a call to action she could no longer ignore. The choice was agonizing, a battle between the wisdom of caution and the fierce urgency of a mother's love. One afternoon, tension peaked. During a public masterclass, Professor Volkov, with a theatrical flourish, called upon Anya to perform a particularly challenging piece. Anya, nervous, stumbled. Volkov launched into a scathing critique. "Your playing, Anya," he declared, his voice echoing through the hushed hall, "lacks the necessary fire, the true Russian spirit. It is technically adequate, perhaps, but devoid of soul. One cannot simply play notes, one must feel them, breathe life into them." His gaze then shifted to Ivan, who had performed the same piece with less precision but more theatricality. "Now, Ivan," Volkov purred, a warm smile gracing his lips, "your interpretation, while still developing, shows a profound understanding of the composer's intent, a genuine connection to the heart of the music." The contrast was stark, brutal. Anya's face flushed, her eyes welling. She clutched her violin. Other students shifted uncomfortably, some casting sympathetic glances at Anya, others avoiding eye contact, caught between their own ambitions and a nascent sense of injustice. Elena, observing, felt cold fury. This was public execution of spirit, calculated to break Anya's will. The echoes of her own past roared. But this time it was her daughter. A quiet, unshakable resolve solidified. She would not allow history to repeat. She would not remain silent. The battle, she realized, would be fought with quiet dignity and unwavering truth, a truth that would resonate far beyond the walls of this conservatory, a truth that would finally break the silence. The concert night arrived, grand and opulent. Volkov, resplendent, presided with self-importance. Anya was scheduled last, a deliberate placement. As her name was called, a hush fell. Anya walked on stage, small against the vast hall, her violin a fragile extension. Elena watched from the wings, heart pounding but gaze steady. Anya raised her bow. The first notes, hesitant then strong, filled the hall. She played a melancholic Russian folk piece, a haunting melody of longing and resilience. Her technique wasn't flawless, but the raw emotion was undeniable. It transcended perfection, a direct appeal to the heart, a symphony of truth. Murmurs rippled, then genuine applause, a recognition of something profound. Volkov, caught off guard, composed himself. During the critique he dismissed Anya's performance. "A charming folk piece perhaps," he began, disdain thinly veiled, "but hardly classical mastery. It lacks rigor, precision." He praised Ivan's sterile performance. His words fell flat. The audience, under Anya's spell, rejected his narrow definition. Elena, with quiet dignity, stepped forward. She didn't accuse. She spoke calmly, her words clear. "Professor Volkov, you speak of soul, of the Russian spirit. Anya has shown tonight that true artistry is not technical perfection, but touching the human heart, conveying emotion, speaking to our shared experiences. Her music perhaps doesn't fit your categories, but it is alive. It is honest. It is the voice of a generation seeking truth, not just tradition." She paused, her gaze sweeping the audience. "And sometimes," she whispered, "the most profound truths are found not in grand pronouncements, but in the quiet, unseen battles of the heart." A ripple of agreement passed through. The applause was for Elena, for her courage, for the truth. Volkov stood exposed, his authority subtly undermined, not by force, but by genuine artistry and a mother's quiet strength. He didn't apologize verbally, but his silence, his discomfort, and the audience's shift served as his public reckoning. The unseen battle was won. The symphony of truth had played its final, resonant chord. In the days and weeks that followed, the ripples of Anya's performance and Elena's stand spread throughout the conservatory, subtle yet undeniable. It wasn't a revolution but a quiet questioning of norms. Other students found courage, experimenting with personal interpretations. Parents, emboldened, advocated more openly. The conservatory, once stifling, began to breathe easier, shifting towards a more inclusive approach. The rigid walls of tradition, though still standing, now had cracks, allowing in the fresh air of authenticity and emotional truth. The unspoken rules, once absolute, were now subject to quiet scrutiny, their power subtly diminished. A new era, one of quiet rebellion and artistic freedom, was slowly dawning. Professor Volkov's influence subtly diminished. His pronouncements, once gospel, were met with skepticism. He continued to teach, but his lessons carried a faint echo of defensiveness, acknowledging broader dimensions of art. He never apologized, but his silence, his occasional gaze on Anya, spoke volumes. He was forced to confront his rigid worldview. The unseen battle left its mark, not with scars, but with a quiet, profound reevaluation. He found himself, for the first time in a long time, truly listening to the music, not just judging it. The subtle shift in his demeanor, though imperceptible to most, was a testament to the power of Elena's quiet defiance, a silent victory that resonated deep within the hallowed halls. For Anya, the concert was a turning point. She pursued music with newfound confidence, her violin an extension of her liberated spirit. Her melodies, once anxious, soared with vibrant emotional depth. She understood true artistry wasn't about pleasing critics, but expressing her soul. Her music became a dialogue, a reflection of human experience. She found her voice as a musician and a young woman, a voice that resonated with the profound emotional landscape of her Russian heritage. She no longer sought external validation, but found strength and purpose in the authenticity of her own artistic expression, a journey of self-discovery that would continue to unfold. Elena found quiet satisfaction. The burden of her past silence, of unfulfilled aspirations, lifted. She protected her daughter, not with aggression but with dignity and truth. She showed Anya and herself that true strength lies in resilience, in standing for what is right. Her victory was personal, a testament to a mother's love and subtle shifts leading to lasting change. The final scene might show Anya years later, performing on a grand stage, her music filling the hall with a profound emotional resonance. The camera might linger on Elena, a faint, knowing smile, a silent acknowledgement of the unseen battle won, a symphony of truth echoing through their lives. The story, a testament to quiet triumphs, had found its resonant conclusion, a quiet victory in the heart of Russia, a timeless tale of courage and conviction.